Hi, class. Welcome. Today we are talking about moral development. So let's go ahead and get started for today. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. We have actually a lot of material that is covered in your text, and of course, during our meeting as well. So we'll kind of piece all of that together. So, this chapter on moral development, before we get too far along, the question is, what is morality? When we poll college students similar to yourselves, we actually find that college students generally agree that morality kind of falls into three different categories. So, the first is the ability to distinguish right from wrong. Second, to be able to act on that distinction. And then finally, third, kind of experience that pride when you do something that is moral, right? Or that kind of falls in line with that good conduct. And then guilt or shame whenever you violate those standards. I think that's pretty interesting, right? That we kind of have this general understanding of morality, even if no two people's kind of moral compass is exactly the same, right? So, what one person might feel okay doing, another may not, but generally we agree on what that definition looks like. So, how do developmentalists then look at morality? So, kind of going through this, developmentalists kind of first identify this affect or emotional component, right? So, this guilt, this concern for others and their feelings. We have a cognitive component, which is that understanding of something that's right or wrong. And then finally, a behavioral component. So, kind of reflecting how we actually behave when we experience that temptation to maybe lie or cheat or to violate kind of rules that we believe to be moral. So, what purpose does this morality serve, right? Why do we have it? Why does our culture perpetuate it? And the reason is kind of this understanding of, as a society, what we deem to be right or wrong has two really important functions. So, first and foremost, it allows us to maintain kind of this social order. And then it also enables us to function appropriately within our culture and what our culture has kind of stated as, right and wrong, and just general attitudes that a group of people have. Kids have to learn to regulate and to control their impulses based on what society has deemed or defined as rules that we need to follow. So, one of the biggest steps in being able to do this is internalizing. So, seeing something and then being able to go inward and really view whether what you did was appropriate or not appropriate. And kind of, if somebody wasn't there to say that's wrong, could you do that on your own? Would you be able to figure that out and kind of follow through with it? So Piaget, we kind of talked about Piaget earlier on. We're getting back to Piaget now. Piaget gave us a theory of moral development. And within this theory, we have heteronomous morality. This occurs about between 5 to 7 years. Autonomous morality as well. And then premoral stage or premoral kind of morality. And so these three ideas are related to Piaget's theory of development. Imminent justice is this idea that if a rule is broken, that we will immediately be punished. This kind of falls into our heteronomous morality, right? So kids who believe that these rules are unchanging, they were there for a reason, that imminent justice perspective. Oh my gosh, I went to go reach for a cookie and I accidentally hit over the cookie jar fell over and broke. Well, that's my punishment because I wasn't supposed to have the cookie, right? So this imminent justice kind of falls as a, for kids that immediately, as soon as they break a rule, they will be punished for it. Your book then switches on to talk about Kohlberg and Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Kohlberg argues that this moral reasoning unfolds in sort of universal stages. And he also believes in kind of three levels. But in each of these levels, there are going to be multiple stages. So 2 stages in each level. So I'm not going to go into great detail here, but I just at least want to outline for you so that way you can go back to your text and take a look. So our pre-conventional reasoning is kind of our lowest level. Here we've got kind of good or bad ideas, and these are based on external rewards and punishments. So our first stage is that heteronomous morality. This is what's going to be tied to our punishment. And stage 2 is this individualism, where it's kind of tied to equal exchange. Conventional reasoning then is going to be this intermediate level. And we have stages 3 and 4 here. In this conventional reasoning, we're going to have our individuals that are abiding to certain standards. But these are also the standards that other people have as well, right? So we've kind of learned that from our society. So stage 3 is kind of this mutual interpersonal expectations. So here we're talking about trust, caring, loyalty to others is the basis of this particular type of judgment. Stage 4 is related to social system morality, and here our judgment is based on social order, on law, and our understanding of that. The highest level, according to Kohlberg, is this post-conventional reasoning. Here, people are going to recognize maybe alternative moral courses that they could use. We could use other options here, and we can decide our own moral code. So stage 5 is related to kind of individual rights, and kind of getting to protecting and preserving these fundamental human rights and values for everyone, right? You kind of believe that this is important. Stage 6 is universal ethical principles, so developing a moral standard based on universal human rights. So it's kind of taking that stage 5 a little bit further. I want to share with you this graph actually, which I find really interesting. So this outlines how old people are here on our x-axis, and our y-axis is kind of that mean percentage of each person in each of these stages, right? So we've got stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So for example, you see that stage 1, we might start out with this early on, and then we start to see a decrease, right? Because we're moving on, hopefully, to higher moral stages. But if you take a look here, it's very few people get to stage 5, and stage 6 is actually non-existent on this graph. So this is to say that some individuals may never reach that sort of highest level of moral development. So kind of, looking at Kohlberg's theory and his ideas, it's argued by his critics that parents probably play a much larger role in their child's moral development than Kohlberg thought or even talks about in his theories. So, we can't fail to acknowledge the role that parents play in our moral development and kind of creating that moral development, or that morality that we use, rather. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about in this chapter is related to empathy, which is sort of being able to take the perspective of another person, kind of understanding what they're feeling, what they're going through. Empathy is actually a really important part of moral development, because without it, we can engage in what we might call immoral behavior, right? And we don't feel that guilt or that shame associated with it, because we're not necessarily thinking about how that other person on the other end is experiencing what we've just done. So I think about people who call older individuals on the phone and, are predators to older individuals trying to steal their life savings. Thinking about kind of empathy there, you can't have any, right? If you did, then you wouldn't be stealing this money that the only money that an elderly person has, and these types of scams. So kind of thinking about moral code, we know you shouldn't steal, we know you shouldn't cheat, but going after an elderly person, trying to take their money, that goes against any of that kind of code, right? That moral code. But what makes us believe that is immoral? Of course, we would have had people teaching us this, right? But my guess is if you asked somebody about this, they would say, well, yeah, you shouldn't steal. I know that, right? This is different. They may have more than I do or something, right? Kind of rationalizing that. But if you truly put yourself in another person's perspective and really saw how they, how it would affect them, would you engage in that same sort of maybe immoral behavior? All right, this is a very neat and interesting chapter, and to think about how morality shifts and kind of changes and how we acquire it is something important to discuss in terms of kind of our development across the board. So as always, if you have any questions over this chapter, I hope you will consider reaching out to me. I'm very, very happy to answer any or all of those questions. All right. Well, it was wonderful being with you virtually here today, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. As a reminder, we only have one more chapter before we're done for this semester. So please do take a look, take inventory of any outstanding assignments you have, and think about kind of how you might make progress to ensure the completion of those outstanding assignments before the end of the semester. All right. Have a good one. I'll see you guys later. Bye.